Hello. Today we are going to be discussing all things networking, Networking 101. During today's conversation, we're going to discuss what networking even is, where to start, how to build your network, thinking about engagement opportunities, networking event preparation, and last but not least, building and maintaining those relationships that are created through networking opportunities. Let's first start by discussing networking assumptions and impressions. When you hear the word networking, what do you think about? What are your fears or roadblocks when you think about networking? Often networking kind of gets a bad rap. So let's discuss and define what networking truly is and break through some of those barriers or thought processes that might be prohibiting you from moving forward in a positive light as we think about networking opportunities. Networking, for all intents and purposes, is a conversation with a purpose. But truly, focusing on that first word here, it is a conversation with another person. The concept of networking is an opportunity for you to meet people with the purpose of building contacts and establishing relationships. It's also a mutually beneficial conversation or exchange of information where both parties, both you and the person you're talking to, benefit. Networking is not so much about connecting with everyone, but with the right people, those who can help you truly advance your career. Did you know that 80% of jobs are found through networking? It is essential through the job search process. And that's why we want to talk through and again, break down those barriers of what networking is and truly define and understand that networking is a conversation with a purpose. This is what we call the networking cycle. So as you start at the top here, thinking about the target, you're thinking about bigger picture, what type of knowledge you're trying to gain, okay? So as you approach a networking conversation, whether you're networking in person at a specific event, you're networking virtually, or you're simply meeting somebody new in a different neutral setting. Thinking about that target, and then you go down to the outreach. How do you make a contact? Then the meeting, the actual conversation. But then after the conversation, you want to make sure that you're following up and of course, maintaining that relationship. And we'll discuss this cycle throughout the conversation today. So let's start first with that targeting concept. Who should I be targeting to build my network? There's a variety of different contacts in loose quotation marks that I'm going to walk through here. First, let's talk about what hot contacts are. They're people that you currently know. So that could be your friends, your family members, your peers, roommates, faculty members. They're people that you see on a regular basis. And they're also people who you truly feel comfortable asking for a favor. Now let's compare hot contacts to what we call warm contacts. So these are people within your larger networks. So these might be folks that you used to work with or current classmates, even previous classmates, if you're still in touch with them on a somewhat regular basis. And that might be more encompassing of your faculty members, your professors, friends of your parents, of your grandparents, aunts, uncles, family, friends, for all intents and purposes. And they might need an intermediary to connect with you. So you might have to ask somebody that you're closer with to reinitiate that conversation, right? So you're not talking to them on a very regular basis. Now let's discuss a cold contact. So these are the folks who might be considered random contacts, alumni. So you have that common bond of having gone through UNC Charlotte's system, for example. And then there's the ice cold contact. So simply somebody that comes up through a LinkedIn search result, as an example, not even an alum, not even that common connection there. So let's talk about LinkedIn for just a second and discuss how this is such an essential component of building your network. I'll start us off with a quick little overview of LinkedIn.
If you're watching this, chances are good you want to get a job. You want to go from student to rising star, and you want to avoid eating the same meal over and over and over again. Good news, you're in the right place. That's right, LinkedIn. It's not just for top executives, it's not just for old people with heavy briefcases. It's for you, and it's the perfect place for you to start your professional story. Say you want to get a job in New York City. You've never been there before, but that's okay because you have LinkedIn on your side. You start by creating your profile. You give it love because you know it's what recruiters are looking for day and night. It's your resume that never sleeps. It's your flashing neon sign that says, hire me, for the love of all that is good in this world, hire me. Then you start making connections. Alumni working in New York? Yes. Recruiters at top companies in New York? Yes. Your mom's best friend? Yes. You start imagining whose shoes you want to walk in. You think, wow, this is a lot of deep stuff to consider. You shake yourself out of it and start searching for jobs. Whoa, that's a lot of jobs for students. Time to get down to business. You start to tailor your profile. You start applying. You feel empowered, in control, like you should be CEO. That gives you an idea. You look up all the CEOs of all the companies you want to work at. You see one of them went to your university. Then it hits you. You see a clear path from campus to career. You feel like you can see the future. You wonder if you're psychic. Should you start a hotline? No, back to plan A. You keep tailoring and connecting and applying, and before you know it, you start getting responses. First a few, then more, then an interview, and then you're hired. And that's when the real learning begins.
All right.
If you're watching this, chances...
So LinkedIn, a couple of comments about this as we're thinking through the networking component. So you want to make sure that your profile is completed 100%. And if you have any questions about how to create a profile or what it means to have a 100% completed profile, that's where the Career Center can come into play. So please feel free to reach out and connect with us via drop-in hours or meet with a career coach to discuss this in more detail. Via LinkedIn, you want to make sure that you're starting to connect with people that you already know. This is a great foundation to start building those contacts. So thinking through, again, people that you work with, your colleagues, your friends that you want to be connected to professionally. Then you want to continue to add new business contacts. So that could mean, for example, people that you have interacted with in a networking setting, a recruiter, an alumni, or an alumnus, anybody that, again, might be somebody new that would be a good contact for you as you're continuing to build your profile. You also want to make sure that you're following specific companies / industries to make sure that you are maintaining knowledge, industry knowledge specifically, to help you prepare for future conversations, for networking situations, and even for future interviews. And then lastly, make sure that you're joining groups that are related to your interests and or your career field. Again, this will help populate your news feed on LinkedIn to make sure that you are knowledgeable about all of the current trends that are happening. Keep in mind, as a heads up, that the Career Center does offer free LinkedIn photos. So schedule a LinkedIn photo via Hire a Niner here with the Career Center, and we'll be happy to get you set up so that your profile is looking as professional as possible. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about a networking pitch email. Now, here's what you want to think about as you're thinking about an email that is directed to a potential employer or an alum that you want to connect with. So things you want to talk about: who you are and how you found them. And so this same concept, I should also say, can be applied to a message you might send via LinkedIn. So explain who you are and why you're reaching out, and specifically what you're hoping to gain from your outreach. Are you hoping to discuss, their current role, their experience with a specific company? Would you like to set up an informational interview? Whatever it is, make sure that you're direct. And then make sure that you wrap it up with a nice conclusion and specific contact information for that person to reconnect with you. Now, as you add new people to your network, you want to keep in mind that networking includes both face to face interactions and, of course, that virtual component, the online interaction. So, think about professional associations, volunteering. These are different spaces that you can continue to network for all intents and purposes, and learn more about different job opportunities, different career paths based off of the conversations that you have with folks via these different opportunities. I mentioned an informational interview before, and if this is a new term for you, think about it as exactly what the title infers. It's an interview, or really a conversation, with somebody that has a job that sounds really interesting, or somebody who works in an industry that you are considering pursuing, and or even somebody who works for a really cool sounding company or organization. So literally you're asking this person to tell you about a day in their life. What does their job responsibilities look like on a regular basis? What does a regular week look like for them? What do they love about their job? What are some challenges that they've seen? What advice can they give to someone like you who's interested in getting into that field? That's what an informational interview is all about. And again, that's a very formal term, but essentially, if you meet folks via a professional association, via a volunteer opportunity, etc., these conversations can happen really naturally if you ask the right questions. Other ways for you to add people to your network are by joining different organizations on campus. So keep that in mind as you're thinking through different involvement opportunities. Let's talk a bit about the University Career Center and on-campus networking provided. So the Career Center frequently provides opportunities for you to connect with employers, both in person, on campus, and also virtually. That includes information sessions, large-scale career fairs in both fall and spring semesters, networking events that are specifically geared toward helping you network, and mixers, and then even our mock interview program. Mock interviews are often led by employer partners who want to give back to our students, give them feedback to help them become better prepared for actual interviews. Simultaneously, it's a great way for you to meet potential employers and, again, truly have a networking conversation. So when you approach networking, you want to make sure that you have a strong awareness about the message that you want to convey. So a couple of ideas for you as you prepare for that networking conversation. Write at least 3 questions that you can ask this person about their personal experience and or their company. Make sure you're asking it directly to that person so that you can get a good idea of their perspective. Know your skills and prepare your 30-second elevator speech. This might be also called an elevator pitch, a 30-second pitch. There's a variety of synonymous terms for this, but make sure that you are confident and easily able to introduce yourself so that you're ready to jump right into that conversation, but also are comfortable sharing a little bit about who you are, your background, and what you're looking for. Lastly, anticipate the questions they might ask you. You're not the only person asking questions because, again, this is a conversation. So think about the questions that your peer, the networking event might produce about your field of concentration, and practice them out loud. It could be as simple as, why'd you choose your major? What do you hope to do once you graduate? Those are very common kind of small talk questions that hopefully you'll be able to talk about pretty easily. But again, it's always a good idea to practice. So let's dig a little bit deeper into that elevator speech. So this is, again, that 30 to 60-second window of time when you have essentially to sell yourself to a new connection or an employer at a networking event. It's kind of like your first impression, right? So a couple of pieces for you to think through as you're preparing and hopefully practicing your speech ahead of time. Make sure that you're including your name, your academic information, your ultimate goals. So what are you looking for? Are you looking for a volunteer role? Are you hoping to gain some experience on your resume as you're exploring different career paths? Are you looking for an internship? a full-time job. And then lastly, if it makes sense in the situation, make sure that you're also highlighting why you're interested in XYZ opportunity or a specific company, and then showcase the research that you've done. You want to make sure that you're also discussing what you can offer. So, talking through the skills that you've gained, unique perspective that you have based off of your experience, etc. When you're approaching a conversation, a networking conversation specifically, it's helpful sometimes to prep ahead of time some different conversation starters so that you'll feel confident striking up a conversation or a chat with somebody that you've not met before. So here are a couple of ideas. Ask the person, how long have you worked for this organization? What do you do specifically in your role? What do you like most about working for this organization? Tell me more about your workplace culture. What advice would you give someone like me who's interested in pursuing a career in your field? As you can see from all of these starters, the questions are pretty open-ended. So they're inviting the person to, again, tell you quite a bit of information from their perspective. This is also helpful for you to gain some information, gain some insight into different careers, into different company cultures, and ultimately, again, start the conversation. Once you ask a question of someone, it's pretty easy for them to get going, especially because they're talking about themselves. Now, here's a few more tips when it comes to networking. Be prepared for some small talk. So it really helps to demonstrate that you have some social skills, no matter how nervous you might be for this particular event. But again, same concept with preparing those questions in the slide before. Come up with a couple of quick, easy topics that you're comfortable speaking about. That could be an open conversation for anybody that you meet. Be prepared to initiate and also maintain that conversation. So again, whether you are at a career fair, you're at one of those networking mixers, don't be afraid to approach somebody new and introduce yourself. That's the whole point of the event. And again, if you make the initiative, that's going to impress the employer and it's going to help you, again, really understand and get to know other folks and potentially learn about new opportunities or job functions that you've not heard of before. Be honest and to the point. Make sure you don't ramble because with a networking event, ideally, you will be talking to multiple people, and conversely, so will the employer that you're speaking with. So make sure that you're not monopolizing their time. Now, after the networking event or meeting or whatever the case might be, the situation in which you've met a new person, you've met a new contact, make sure that you're sending thank you notes to everyone that you spoke with. And by thank you notes specifically, I recommend sending an email. So ideally, during the event, you're collecting contact information. Ask them if they have a business card they can share with you. And if not, ideally, you'll have a Padfolio or a notebook or something along those lines to jot down a couple of quick notes. Ask them for their first and last name and also for their email address. Then again, within 48 business hours, ideally within 24 hours of the actual event, send them a follow-up, tell them how great it was to meet them, ideally comment on something specific that you all talked about or discussed. Another reason to have a notebook with you so you can jot down some notes in between conversations, and then wrap it up again with a closing. You would, in addition, want to connect with them on LinkedIn. And another pro tip here, when you're actually live in person with the recruiter, the employer, the alum, ask if they'd be willing to connect with you on LinkedIn right there on the spot. So you can even open your LinkedIn app on your phone, connect with them there, send them a quick note. And again, that really showcases the initiative. And that'll be an easy way for you to go back and reconnect with them, send them a message, again, thanking them for their time and for the conversation you had. Let's talk a little bit about resumes. Now, in some networking situations, for example, like for a career fair, you might have the opportunity to bring a pile of resumes with you. I definitely recommend it if it's, again, a career fair or something along those lines. So keep in mind that this is a really important marketing tool for yourself. It's a one-page overview of everything that makes you the professional that you are and showcases your skills. It's typically the first point of impression for employers, especially when you're applying online. Conversely, again, if you're meeting with an employer at a career fair, of course, you can physically hand a copy of your resume to the employer, which again will showcase to them all of the awesome detail that you have built up through your time at Charlotte and beyond. A few quick resume tips. Make sure that your resume is only one page. Objectives are optional. And I would recommend only including an objective if it is geared toward a specific industry and you are definitely handing that resume to somebody within that particular industry. If not, I would completely exclude it, especially in a networking event, because you don't want to pigeonhole yourself into one specific industry or career path. Make sure prior to handing your resume to anybody or submitting it online, of course, to an application that you have proofread your document and that multiple other pairs of eyes have also proofread your document. Typically, we recommend that the font is no smaller than 10 points, 10-point font. Otherwise, it's a little bit too difficult to read. Make sure that your dates are all aligned to the far right side of the page to add a nice balance visually to the information that you present. And then keep in mind that per section, all of the information should be written in reverse chronological order. If you have additional questions about resumes, we have plenty of career meetups on this particular topic. So check that out on the Career Center's event page. And then also, of course, keep in mind that we offer drop-in hours for quick overviews if you would like to have your resume reviewed and get some advice and feedback. Now, for networking events, whether it's in person or virtually, you want to make sure that you are dressing appropriately. Hopefully, you can easily spot some of the photos on this page here that are not quite appropriate for a professional event. So with regards to what to wear, keep in mind, and my personal preference is to err on the side of caution and dress more professionally than you think you might need to, because attire truly does make make a difference when you are making a first impression with someone. So if you are specifically going to a career fair, typically we recommend professional attire. So that means a full-on suit jacket, nice professional top beneath, pants or skirt, but typically those are a matching suit, appropriate shoes, and or again, if you're attending any other kind of networking mixer, business casual attire is typically recommended. Keep in mind that the University Career Center does offer a professional clothing closet. So if you do not have a professional attire that you feel is appropriate for a networking event or even for an interview, please feel free to come to the University Career Center, ask us about the professional clothing closet, and we'll be happy to show you the space and allow you to take a full outfit free of charge so that you're feeling confident and prepared for those conversations. Now, once you have networked and you've attended an event, you met multiple fantastic contacts, let's talk about post-event building and maintaining those relationships, right? Because ideally, it's not just a one and done conversation. So you have to ideally make the time to follow up with those new connections to make sure that they truly stay that, a connection, right? Not just somebody that you met once and you completely, lost. Reach out and ask them how you can be of help. One idea or suggestion is to take them out for coffee. Leverage your relationships to be mutually beneficial, right? It's not just about what the contact can do for you and who they can connect you with. It also goes, it goes the same way for you. How can you help that new contact? So an example of, again, another way you might be able to assist is emailing articles of interest, sending holiday cards or emails, or any non-transactional correspondence, right? So just a friendly touch base. Update your contacts on your progress, your career progress specifically, every few months or as things happen. That way, again, you are staying top of mind for these folks, but you're also not sending them an email every week or a LinkedIn message every month, even. It doesn't have to be that regular, but again, just touching base, quarterly, I think is a pretty safe suggestion, just to touch base with them and see how they're doing as well. Another great idea, especially if you're following their company or you start following them on LinkedIn or you hear something in the news or on a podcast, reach out, see, get their input, their opinion on whatever is happening. That's a really easy conversation starter. Also, check in to see if they'll be attending conferences or other industry professional development events. This is a great way, again, to initiate conversation. And ideally, if you're attending a conference, for example, you might be able to connect with them once you're there. And lastly, if you see an opportunity to help them, take it, pay it forward, whether that's connecting them with somebody else in your own network or something along those lines. That is a really fantastic way to strengthen and maintain a bond. If networking 101 has sparked any additional questions for you about this concept, about the events that are offered through the Career Center, or just about having conversation with employers in general, please connect with us. You're welcome to stop by the Career Center for drop-in hours, and you're encouraged, of course, to schedule a one-on-one career coaching appointment if you want to chat with a coach in more depth about this conversation. We are on social media, of course, so check us out, especially follow us on Instagram for upcoming information. And again, we hope to see you soon, and we hope that this presentation has been helpful as you prepare for any networking events coming up.